Hey, and welcome back to the Mr. Van tutorial. We're looking at essay writing here, and specifically we're going to look at the conclusion paragraph, just a singular paragraph. I've already set up a little bit of work just so that we have an idea what we're doing here. In the conclusion paragraph, coming of course at the end of your essay, you're looking to basically do three things. So I'm going to make sure these are really obvious, and I'm going to just put them in highlight here. So the first one is restate your thesis, but in different words. I've put the thesis below just so we can all see it here, right here. Go from the narrow focused view back into the general broad one. So that means we've been doing a lot of evidence-based, really pointing at things, showing how they're connected. Now we want to come big picture and talk about how our topic fits into the bigger picture. And the third one is leave the reader with something tied to the big picture, I should say, to think about. You want to have the reader craving more. All right? So I'm going to start this off, and I'm going to show what an introductory paragraph, concluding paragraph might look like. Just to begin with, we're going to bring it all back together with the thesis. So my thesis, as pointed out right here, is going to get rewritten. Canada and the United Nations support of Rwanda was a colossal failure. Oops, how do I spell colossal right? Colossal failure. Because the mission was never properly funded, the leader, Dallaire, was never given enough control, and the personnel were not prepared for what they were going to encounter in Africa. Let's say in this war-torn country of Africa. There's the thesis restated. Pretty similar. You can see it's quite similar. Now we're going to tack on going from the specific into the more general. So we're going to tack on this sentence. The United Nations and Canada have had a long time, about 20 years, to look back on what went wrong and have since made a more conscious to try and better prepare troops for their missions. This is true. If I had more time in this tutorial, I would go and I would actually go find a fact supporting that. Somebody who we can quote would be great. Conclusions aren't, evidence isn't just for body paragraphs. You can drop in quotes and facts in conclusions and in introductions as well. I think it'd be a great place for it. Just for time, though, I'm not going to right now. So we're now going back to the broad. Finally, we're going to do the leave the reader with something tied to the big picture to think about. As we move forward and like to consider ourselves defenders of peace in Canada, the government will need to continue considering whether or not we are correctly preparing our troops and modeling good behavior for the rest of the world who are continually watching us. Now I'm going to take it back and ask the question to the reader, which is something you can do. It ties into the leave the reader with something to think about, so it's an option. Ask a question. Doesn't have to be done, but you could. I'm going to, in this case, to tie off this paragraph. The question remains, how do Canadians want to define themselves as people who undercommit but don't risk take in the international scene, or as people who defend the rights of others globally? Alright, so as you can see, I think that needs to be 2 words, risk take. As you can see, I've got a bit of a bias to it. We can spot all the parts that are evident here. This is where we're restating the thesis. Let's put that in one color. Let's go with yellow. We've got the part where we're going from the narrow, which is the thesis, very hyper-specific, back into back into the broader. Let's make that a green color. We've got the part where we're going to set up, getting the reader really engaged, asking them a question comes next, and then we kind of give an insight into that. So I'm going to make that a fourth color. So we've kind of got all the parts of the conclusion here. Conclusions can vary in size. I would say this is probably on the shorter one. Each of these could likely become 2 sentences, but for the sake of time, I wanted to give just one solid sentence for each. All right, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed.